வணக்கம் நேயர்களே, மற்றொரு ஈழத்தமிழரும் சர்வதேச அரசியல் மன்ற நிகழ்ச்சியினூடாக சந்திப்பதில் மிக்க மகிழ்ச்சி. பிரித்தானியாவில் வாழக்கூடிய தமிழர்கள் தமது தொகுதியில் இருக்கக்கூடிய நாடாளுமன்ற உறுப்பினர்களிடம் சென்று தமது சொந்த பிரச்சனைகளாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, தமது கவுன்சில், அதாவது தாம் வாழ்ந்து கொண்டிருக்கக்கூடிய இடங்களில் இருக்கக்கூடிய பிரச்சனைகள் இருந்தாலும் சரி, தாய்நாட்டில் ஸ்ரீலங்காவில் வடகிழக்கில் வந்திருக்கக்கூடிய மக்கள் தமது பிரச்சனைகளை, குறிப்பாக இந்த போர்க்குற்ற விசாரணைகள் அல்லது நீதி தேடல் தொடர்பான விடயங்களில் பிரித்தானிய நாடாளுமன்ற உறுப்பினர்களுடைய உதவியை நாடுவது வழக்கம். பிரதான எதிர்க்கட்சிகள் இரண்டுமே, பிரதான கட்சிகள் இருக்கக்கூடிய ஆளும் பணவாத கட்சியாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, பிரதான எதிர்க்கட்சியாக இருக்கக்கூடிய தொழிற்கட்சியாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, தமிழர்களுக்கு சார்பாக அல்லது எதிராக அல்லது அவர்கள் தொடர்பான நிலைப்பாட்டை எடுப்பதற்காக தமிழர் சார் அமைப்புகளையும் அவர்கள் தமிழகத்தை கொண்டு வைத்திருக்கிறார்கள். இந்த வகையிலே இன்றைய நிகழ்ச்சியில் இலங்கையில் தற்போது இடம்பெற்றுக் கொண்டிருக்கும் நிலைமைகள் தொடர்பாக கலந்துரையாடுவதற்கும், சர்வதேசத்தில் பிரித்தானிய நிலைப்பாடு இலங்கையிலுடைய நீதி பொறிமுறை தொடர்பாகவும் அல்லது ஜெனீவா தீர்மானத்தை நிறைவேற்றுவது தொடர்பாகவும் அல்லது போருக்கு பின்னரான அபிவிருத்தி தொடர்பான விடயங்களில் பிரித்தானுடைய பங்கு என்ன என்பது தொடர்பாக கலந்துரையாடுவதற்காக சட்டன் மற்றும் சீம் பகுதிக்கான ஆளும் பழமவாத கட்சியினுடைய நாடாளுமன்ற உறுப்பினர் போல் ஸ்கலி அவர்களை நாம் இன்றைய கலையமளித்திருக்கிறோம். Kali, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
So, in your area, Sutton is the second largest, the Tamils are the second largest community in your area.
So I understand, yes.
And you have your daily surgeries, weekly surgeries, and you meet people very regularly. What has been their main demand and what has been their problem?
So I've, in general, my surgeries tend to be housing, immigration, benefits and welfare and these sort of things. In terms of Tamils, from members of the Tamil community that come to me, much the same. They represent the wider population as a whole. They're ingrained in the Sutton community. There are a few more people that have visa issues when they're trying to get family members over for a wedding, for funerals, for other events and these kind of things, and maybe because of the tightening of the rules or just an administrative error, there have been problems, and hopefully I can smooth those through.
So what you talk about immigration issues that affects the people more. What are the issues that they face? What do you hear from them?
What on immigration?
Yes.
Well, I think one of the things that tends to happen, it's when a family member wants to come and visit that may have been here a number of times before, but someone else has judged their visa, whereas they've got a visa many times in the past, someone else might have judged it in a slightly different way. Because one of the things is that it's not like a court of law, it's done on a balance of probabilities. Okay. So it's really up to that decision maker whether they believe you're going to return or not. And sometimes they jump to the wrong conclusion. And it can be expensive, it can be bureaucratic for a family member to keep going through that process and making sure they're ticking every box in terms of savings, have you got a property and all of these sort of things. But unfortunately, that's the way that things are going. When we're trying to manage immigration in a fair way, we have to have some rules and regulations, and sometimes they can be very complicated. And hopefully I can help get them through the situation.
That is for those people who are trying to come to visit their relatives or children and all that. But what about those who come here determined not to return because of the persecution that is taking place in Sri Lanka?
There are a number of people like that, but I think we have had a good history of working with Tamils that have been persecuted, as you say, and the UK government for many years has been very understanding and supportive of the Tamil community. In what's happening over there, but also welcoming the Tamil community to this country. So I think we do have a number of people that live in Sutton that have claimed asylum successfully. There are a few people that the system is still either taking a long time or people are not, the authorities, the UK Border Force are not convinced, so we've got to actually look into that situation. It's not really my job to be the arbiter, to be the judge,
No.
but what I can do is help guide them through the process and speed up the process.
Since you talk about this immigration issue, I think one of those main concerns raised is that there are people who have faced torture in the hands of Sri Lankan security forces,
Yeah.
which many international organizations like Freedom from Torture, which is based
Yes.
in UK, and International Truth and Justice Process, ITJP, International Truth and Justice Project,
Yeah.
which is based in Johannesburg. They say they have documented saying that even after the regime change in Sri Lanka, there are people being tortured, especially those who have been returned
Yes.
from UK and some other countries.
Yeah.
And these people have been virtually been returned to face torture.
Yeah.
What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think this is the difficulty because I know it's something that the Foreign Secretary, the previous Foreign Secretary,
one,
obviously,
yes.
now we've changed, has raised directly with the Sri Lankan government.
Okay.
Ongoing reports of torture. I know when the UN Special Rapporteur went just a few months ago, he heard a number of examples of torture that's still going on, beatings and use of blunt instruments and these kind of things. And it's important that we keep the pressure on with the Sri Lankan government to say, well, what are you going to do about it? You know, it's all very well admitting that this is still continuing, but what are your plans for actually eliminating torture? Because it has no place in the modern world. It has no place in Sri Lanka. And in terms of people that have settled in the UK, that have gone back to Sri Lanka, you know, we need to be protective of these people. We've given people asylum. We've welcomed them to our community, and it's important that we continue to speak out, but make sure that the system that we have when we are applying the test to see whether they are actually persecuted is fair, it's open, it's transparent, and it goes right the way through. It takes in all of the evidence that person can present.
You talk about, you said the previous foreign minister, Hugo Swear, took up the issue with the Sri Lankan government.
Yeah.
And he came back and at a function in Tamil function, I think British Tamil foreign function. He said it's not rosy everywhere. It is not that everything is perfect there, but things have certainly improved. And he expected the people to go back there and visit their relatives instead of listening to and hearing stories from their friends and relatives. What was the government's response to that? About the ongoing torture? Well,
I think this is part of the problem. We've got to help. You know, we are not the Sri Lankan government. All we can do is put pressure on. You know, we can't. It's not for us to tell any other country what they must do, or apart from meeting their international responsibilities. Of course, torture is one of them, and so we need to work through the UN and other bodies like that to make sure that all of the countries around the world are putting pressure on Sri Lanka to meet their international responsibilities to eliminate torture. But in the meantime, we want to make sure that we are working with the Sri Lankan government to create the environment that people can feel a degree of confidence of going back to Sri Lanka. Now, not everybody is going to be in the same position. You know, some people would have been at the forefront of the troubles. Other people will just have travelled over here and been here for a number of years. And I would hope that those people that are not necessarily in the front line would feel confident about going back to have a degree of confidence of going back to Sri Lanka. But we need to make sure that it says that we create the environment for everybody to feel the ability to travel between the two countries safely.
After this new government coming to power in January 2015, the British government has pledged, the David Cameron government, pledged £6.6 million for post-war reconciliation as well as security sector reforms. So you have a greater role in ensuring that Sri Lankan security forces refrain from involving this kind of extrajudicial measures. Don't you think so?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think
how do we make sure that, you know, the security sector reforms is being done, and what kind of mechanism do you have to monitor that?
If we are spending any money of our own money, of UK taxpayers' money in any other country through international development funds and the like, it's absolutely incumbent on Priti Patel, the new International Development Secretary. I know her pretty well. She is very much a pounds and pence kind of girl. So she will be very keen to make sure that the money is spent wisely, it's spent on exactly what it was there to do, rather than just being sidelined for any other prospect. So yes, we can use that money and that leverage, if you like,
absolutely, yeah,
to put pressure, extra pressure on the Sri Lankan government. I think one of the other areas that we need to look towards as well, especially whilst we've gone through the Brexit process, yes, is to work on bilateral trade. And in order to do that, you need to be able to give companies, so it's not just the countries, but the companies that want to invest in Sri Lanka, the confidence that there is an open, transparent, safe and secure environment for them to do business. So there's lots of different levers that we can be using to make sure that the Sri Lankan government are open for international scrutiny. And that's not by hiding anything, that's by eliminating the things that they really should not be doing under international law.
But you said you have been talking to the companies, or basically you should create an environment where the investors should feel, the UK investors especially, should feel free and confident that their money is safe and their investment is worthy. What is their reaction? I'm sure you would be working with them.
Well, I mean, I think when you mentioned about the president coming over here, that was in May, that was for the anti-corruption seminar that was hosted in London, here in London. And that's one of the first things that we need to, that businesses will be looking at when they're investing, as well as safety and security. But when we bring people over here to talk about corruption, it gives us a wonderful opportunity to talk about the wider aspects. So to talk about torture, to talk about the justice and reconciliation process in Sri Lanka, to talk about people living in camps, displaced people, land grabbing, and these kind of issues that are really essential issues that need to be there. It's overdue for being tackled.
What do you hear from the electorate in terms of torture and other abuses?
I actually, well, in terms of abuses, I was at a Mullavikal ceremony.
Remembrance.
Yes, in Westminster just a few months ago, and that was probably one of the hardest things that I've had to sit and listen to. Certainly over my 14 months or so of being an MP, because that's not the torture and the ongoing things, but it was just the atrocities that happened right at the end in Jaffna, and it was tough. It was really tough for me sitting here in a comfortable home, comfortable place of work in the UK. And so I do know that land grabbing is still going on, and that not enough of it has been returned. There have been some nominal returns of land, but when you have people still living in camps, and you have more than one generation, sometimes 2 or 3 generations living in displacement camps, that's obviously no way forward, and you're not going to be able to move forward as a country, as a region, until we start sorting that out. In terms of having a free media that can actually scrutinise what the government is doing, and actually, because we can look at it from the UK and put pressure on, but where we benefit as a country in the UK is from a free media, from keeping us on our toes. And the more that we can do that in countries like Sri Lanka, that'll help bring the process on, I think, far quicker.
Yesterday there was a function, last week there was a function in Jaffna, where US government's Pacific Command troops have gone there to help the people in terms of medical facilities and other assistance. The opposition leader, the leader of the Tamil National Alliance, the major Tamil party, he has said that the one other important issue that the people who have been resettled, or people who have been displaced by war, who are still looking for resettlement in their native places, face is the deep militarization and the military surveillance. And the military activities are interfering with their lives and affecting their livelihood. In addition to the land grabs, they are not returning their lands. How is the UK government going to address that issue?
Well, I think, again, this is something...
Because UK is seen as one of the key international players.
No, for sure.
Be the human rights, international aid or peaceful solutions?
Yeah, I think in terms of peacekeeping, what tends to occur these days in peacekeeping is to usually go through the UN. So I think the UK has a significant voice within the UN to be able to raise this issue. And then peacekeeping forces tend to be regional these days, rather than just sending someone from the UK halfway across the world, to have people that are nearby that have a direct connection, or a closer connection, should I say, to the issues there. Now that obviously means, you know, this is all part of the wider settlement that you talked about.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when we come to reconciliation, for example, some of the APPG, the all-party parliamentary group that I belong to, that I work with James Berry and a number of other MPs for, we've been calling for independent judges to be sitting on there, so they're not just Sri Lankans, so that people can have the confidence in that process. And that will be the same with peacekeeping, that you need to make sure that anybody that's there helping to contribute to peacekeeping has the confidence of the people whose peace they're trying to keep.
Yeah, but the peacekeeping operation is another issue that is haunting Sri Lanka. 117 soldiers, Sri Lankan soldiers, who were in the first batch, went to Haiti, sorry. 117 soldiers were sent back. They were charged that they were abusing children and sexually exploiting people around there. And to date, we have not seen that they face any punishment. Yeah. Sri Lanka keeps sending people, security forces, personnel for international peacekeeping missions. Yeah. At a time when the Sri Lankan security forces are facing a huge war crime probe and allegations of torture and sexual abuses, how does a government like UK ensure that there's a proper vetting process before these people being sent for peacekeeping operations in other countries?
I think it's something we need to bring our experience to bear when we've been peacekeeping in parts of Africa, Sierra Leone, for example, where Bosnia and these areas that we've, over the last 10, 20 years, we need to use our experience and actually make sure that we call this out at the highest level in the United Nations. And by doing so, hopefully, we can get to the point where we can, you know, if there are these things happening, I'm not familiar with the situation myself, but that we can call them out, we can shame the people into actually just accepting change, because change has to happen.
What kind of tangible pressures the UK can exert on Sri Lanka?
Well, I think
other than something like GSP.
Yeah, no, look, I think first of all, we've had the elections in Sri Lanka last year. So I think it was the view, I believe, of the UK government that the results of the elections found that it was going to be easier to deal with the new incumbents on the president and the parliament. And I know, obviously, things haven't worked out in terms of the speed that people would like. Yes. But nonetheless, these things do take time. You're never going to make change overnight. So we need to carry on our dialogue. We need to carry on working with the government, showing that we are open for dialogue in the same way, as I say, when the president came here in May, that we can have cordial but firm conversations, because being a fair friend, we can be a critical friend. So there's no point in putting the barriers up too quickly. But in terms of showing the benefits of actually having a proper reconciliation and peacekeeping process, so in terms of trade, in terms of increased aid and those kind of things, we want to be spending our UK taxpayers' money on things that are going to make a tangible difference. So not the £6.6 million that we're talking about. If it's being wasted, we should be spending it somewhere where the recipients will benefit from it and see a direct benefit from it. That's what I mean about being a critical friend. It's use it or lose it in many ways. But if we can sort of like talk to them about the wider benefits of rejoining the international community as beacons rather than as pariahs, as people that are doing things because they're always forced to do something, be at the forefront of change. And I think that would benefit the Sri Lankan government. But that will only work with Boris Johnson now and Alok Sharma, the new Foreign Office Minister that's taken over from Hugo Sawar, who I know well. I used to work for him, actually, funny enough. Okay. So I'll certainly be looking for an early meeting with Alok to talk to him about these issues and to make sure that he's aware of your concerns and the community's concerns, to be able to put such pressure on.
Whatever the pressure the Western world might exert on Sri Lanka, this will push Sri Lanka more towards China. Do you think that these countries face that risk?
Yeah, well, I think this is why it's important that we don't just shut up the barriers that I was talking about, but by being critical friends. Because I have my father was born in Burma, and I was able to travel to Burma early on this year, Myanmar, and met Aung San Suu Kyi, and we were talking with a number of politicians there. And they are finding that they have, having been such a closed country for many, many years, for 50 years, 60 years, that they are now starting to look away from China themselves because they realise that cheap isn't always best, and that China doesn't necessarily have isn't so much interested in the country, it's interested in the cash. Okay. And their own prosperity. So they are looking to the West for a difference. Same with Bangladesh, another country that I've been to a few times, are in a similar position in terms of that they have the pressure of the might, the economic might of China. It's easy to take the money and to take that investment when it's been offered so readily. But sometimes it's better to look wider. And I would hope, as the UK, as you say, we've got a strong influence in the world in terms of soft power. If we can remain being critical friends, so not just wagging a finger and telling people like an old colonial power what to do, but just helping, friendly, putting an arm around our shoulders and say, what can we do to help? But let's actually look realistically about the things that need tackling immediately. You cannot put people in camps or force people to go into camps. You cannot take land off people. You cannot torture people. You've got to get a grip on these issues. These are just common sense things. And it's that sort of dialogue that needs to happen. As I say, it won't happen overnight.
But even as we speak today, the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka is in China. He has demanded the Chinese investors to come and invest in Sri Lanka. Do you think China is played as a fear factor to deal with to neutralize the Western pressure? Well,
possibly, but to an extent. But on the other hand, I wouldn't expect Sri Lanka just to say, you know what, no, we're going to come to the UK and we don't want anything to do with China. There is a great value we're looking at China investing in nuclear power plants in this country. Yeah. So I'm not saying don't have anything to do with China by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. All I'm doing is sort of talking about the fact that we need to use our influence to help with change for the people for the Tamil community in particular in Sri Lanka, help to make Sri Lanka a more prosperous place overall and bring the people back together again, and frankly just have a bilateral agreement, so that it's not all about us telling Sri Lanka and pushing Sri Lanka into a position. It's actually us getting some economic benefit as well, so we can invest in each other's businesses, in industries and economies, benefit from each other culturally and community-wise, as we've done for many, many years.
Scully, we have a lot to talk. Before we talk further, we'll go for a short commercial break. Please stay tuned.